After Season 1 had come to a close, there were a number of fans who noticed that out of all the main 6, Rainbow Dash was the only one who did not have a pet of her own. When watching this episode, I have to admit that I've been rather curious about whether the writers decided to come up with this idea on their own, or whether they might have been listening to the fans and figured that every member of the main 6 should have their own pet. Either way, it does seem like a good idea to work with, but how well does the actual story hold up? Let's take a look. As the episode begins, we see Rainbow having a dream about all her friends' pets being combined into one animal. A rather bizarre and creative image, I must say. She is awoken by the pets and their owners as they are taking part in a pet playdate that apparently happens every week. And Rainbow didn't know about it since the rest of the main 6 didn't think that she would fit in, as she doesn't have a pet of her own. At first, Rainbow tries to play it cool, but really does start to feel left out. And so she mentions that she might want to have a pet someday, which causes Fluttershy to immediately become more excited than I've ever seen her before. Honestly, the way she is talking to Rainbow here sounds like she never gets anyone to talk to her about getting a pet of their own. Which leads into the first song of Season 2. Out of the entire series, this song actually has the most focus on Rainbow Dash, and even then she is sharing the spotlight with Fluttershy. I've mentioned before that I think it would be interesting to see Rainbow Dash get a song all to herself, and watching this episode just makes me want to see it all the more. As for the song itself, I feel that it has its ups and downs. There are some parts that would probably sound better if they were just speaking the line instead of singing it. But there are other parts that really show some great harmonies between the two Pegasi. There are a few moments that have some rather awkward lyrics, and other moments that actually work very well in creating something that sounds rather grand. So as you can probably tell, I have some mixed feelings about this piece. Parts of it feel rather amateurish, while other parts seem rather impressive. I may not like some of the awkwardness, but I do enjoy the very cute expressions and harmonies. So overall, it is something that I enjoy hearing once in a while, but probably not something that really stands out when compared to some of the other songs in MLP, at least for me. When Rainbow starts gathering all the pets for her competition, she begins acting very brash and arrogant. I can remember when I watched this episode for the first time that Rainbow seemed to be taking things a little too far with how much she is driving the pets' confidence into the ground. But then I was reminded of how Spitfire was acting during Wonderbolt Academy, and it got me thinking. I had always believed that when Rainbow had finally gotten in front of Spitfire at the Wonderbolt Academy, that Spitfire's behavior would have thrown her for a loop at first, but Rainbow's confidence had just managed to keep her steady. But watching this scene in May the Best Pet Win makes me wonder if Rainbow really did know all about Spitfire's drill sergeant behavior at the Academy, and was actually trying to imitate some of her mannerisms when choosing a pet. The way Rainbow is acting here seems to be more than just her cocky attitude. I'd be willing to bet that there is a little bit of following in her idol's footsteps, even if she doesn't quite understand everything that goes into inspiring those that follow her just yet. Putting that aside, though, I do find Rainbow being rather harsh with some of the pets here, even to the point of being downright abusive. I understand that the point of this episode is to have the right kind of mindset when choosing a pet of your own, but even the rest of the main 6 seem a bit out of character here. I mean, there is a brief moment when both Applejack and Twilight are questioning Rainbow's actions. But for the rest of the episode, we see the main 6 cheering at all these events. This is especially odd coming from Fluttershy, as her behavior in Magic Duel paints a very different picture. When Twilight wanted to use some of the animals to perform a magic trick, Fluttershy was overwhelmingly concerned about their safety. And yet during this episode, Fluttershy seems much more calm about watching these pets going through a marathon of abuse all for the sake of satisfying Rainbow's ego. But putting aside the fact that the main 6 seem a bit out of character here, I do like the fact that they are playing Flight of the Valkyries during this scene, as it really sets a nice tone for the race. I like all the creative ways that these pets are pulling off all these events. The animators were clearly having some fun with all these different animals. And even Rainbow Dash has some more moments of being accidentally cute. So Rainbow's overconfidence eventually catches up with her, causing her to get caught underneath a rock. It doesn't take long for Rainbow to start panicking, and she even starts to give in to despair before Tank shows up. And even though Rainbow has been giving this tortoise the cold shoulder for the entire episode, Tank actually shows a lot of heart in this scene here. and ends up lifting a boulder with only his head. Now, we've seen some feats of strength from Rainbow before, and she couldn't get herself out from under this rock. And yet Tank is able to lift it all on his own. That really is impressive. Overall, I do think there are a lot of good moments in this episode. I can tell that the animation is getting better over some of the previous episodes. I like all the antics that the pets are coming up with. And even Tank makes for a very interesting pet for Rainbow Dash. Their moments together in Season 3 are especially adorable. But this episode still suffers from a few issues. The most concerning of which is the actions of Rainbow Dash in putting these pets through all this abuse, and the inaction of the rest of the main 6 who just stand on the sidelines cheering them on. And while the story is enjoyable, it is overwhelmingly predictable. You can easily tell what kind of direction this story is going from very early on. But while I wouldn't call it a great episode, I wouldn't really put it in the okay category either. This is still something that I enjoy watching every once in a while. What are your thoughts on this episode? Do you think Rainbow's actions really fit with what we know about her? Is it possible that her drill sergeant attitude came from mimicking one of her idols? Do you think the rest of the main 6 are staying in character here? Do you have any thoughts on a future episode that would involve Rainbow and Tank again? I would like to hear your thoughts on May the Best Pet Win, and here's to hoping for some more accidental cuteness from Rainbow in the future. I am DRWolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Through Ghastly Gorge! Dun dun dun! Kazoo night.